Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and today we're going to be looking at every single card we're going to be losing with our next rotation. Now, I wanted to wait for Pokemon to announce rotation, but it hasn't been announced yet, but it is safe to assume we are going to get rotation around EUIC and obviously around our next Scarlet and Violet main set, so we kind of already have a timeline of when we're probably going to get it, and I thought better late than never. I didn't want to take too long to get this video out, because last year I did something similar where we looked at what we're losing with rotation, and then I looked at what cards are going to get worse with rotation. So I kind of want to do something similar once again here for today's video. Of course, we are going to be going with Brilliant Stars and on. Every E-Block card will be rotating. E-Block is gone. It's going to be F-Block and on for our next rotation here. So if y'all are new to the second channel here, make sure to subscribe down below. If you go on to enjoy the video, leave a like. Hopefully this was informative. I am using PTCG Live to look at all the cards we're losing. It was probably the easiest way to do this, and also it does allow us to kind of look at the cards in good high definition. So ironically, live is the best way to look at all the cards, leaving us with rotation. Starting things off, we got the Pokemon with our grass types here. We are going to be losing Beedrill with that instant knockout attack with Persisting, where if your opponent's active has any special energy on it, it's immediately knocked out. Special energy hasn't really been that popular as of lately, though. Obviously, back in the day, this was a lot better. But now Special Energy is not as popular, so this Beedrill doesn't really do much right now, but maybe in the future, if we get like some crazy new Special Energy cards that shake the game up, this card will be missed. Another card I'm sad to see go is Cherrim. I was a big fan of Cherrim. I'm kind of sad to see it go. It's a nice energy acceleration card for grass decks, and honestly, grass decks don't really have a good energy acceleration card at the moment. I mean, they have Gardenia, they have Fortress EX, but now that they're losing Cherrim, it kind of feels bad. So Cherrim definitely is a loss that I'm going to be a little sad to see go. A lot of fun rogue decks came from Cherrim, so I'm sad to see Cherrim go. Durant's also rotating. One of our big mill cards is leaving. Not the best mill card ever, but Durant did have its success for a little bit. Some people were playing it. It was a fun little troll meme deck. But yeah, Durant will be gone. You no longer got to worry about the ants anymore. Leafeon V is rotating. Leafeon V Star, I think, is staying in the format, but Leafeon V is gone. So Leafeon V is definitely a pretty decent loss for, you know, any grass deck. I mean, it's not a bad card for, like, Leafeon V Star and V Max, but Leafeon V itself had a really good ability where you can put a grass energy on one of your Pokemon, and your turn would end if you do so. It's a great ability to play in a grass deck. If I'm playing a Pokemon that needs grass energy, sometimes I'm playing a one of Leafeon as a way to get extra energy in play. It's like a pseudo energy acceleration card for grass decks, but now Leafeon is leaving in the format, so we will no longer be able to do that now with the Leafeon V. So definitely a bit of a sizable loss for sure. Leafeon VMAX also is leaving alongside Leafeon V. Obviously, Leafeon VMAX isn't really the greatest card ever. Doesn't see a whole lot of play at the moment, but it is a grass Pokemon that, you know, some Arc piles might want to play, because it's pretty safe to say Charizard is still going to be good after rotation. And obviously, Leafeon VMAX rotating is just one less grass card they can play. And next up, we got Venusaur VMAX. Not really that playable of a card, but it is another big grass VMAX rotating if Arc Piles ever wanted to play it. Blastoise VMAX is also leaving too. Blastoise and Venusaur VMAX are leaving. None of them really saw that much success. I mean, Blastoise is a really cool card, and I think it's a really fun card to play. It doesn't really do anything special, though, unfortunately. But we are losing Crabominal V. This is a decent loss for stall decks. It is a nice way to deck your opponent out if they're trying to, you know, stall you out or something, or they have an alternative win condition where Trigger Avalanche can discard the top two cards of their deck, so you can aggressively mill your opponent with Crabominal V. It's also got a really strong attack, Destroyer Punch. This saw niche success even in the Lost Zone decks too, so that's another decent loss for Lost Zone decks, as they are now losing Crabominal V as an option for an attacker. Ice Cube's rotating. Not super relevant because, like, the whole Fusion Strike engine is leaving too, but I did want to include that, yeah, we are losing these Fusion Strike cards. Greninja V-Union's rotating. Yeah, we're losing V-Unions. One of the coolest mechanics we've seen in a long time are going to be leaving us with rotation. Greninja, Mewtwo, Pikachu, they're all gone. Unfortunately, Greninja leaving is pretty sad to see. I don't like Greninja leaving the format. It's a fun V-Union with its big attack where you can do a ton of bench damage. But yeah, Greninja V-Union will be rotating, which is pretty sad. Gyarados VMAX is also rotating. Now, this card did see quite a bit of success when, you know, we had our old format. But now that, you know, rotation hit, you know, this year, Gyarados kind of fell off. But it did actually get some success in Sacramento. So it did have its redemption arc. But it is now leaving. So Arc Piles not being able to play Gyarados anymore could be relevant. The big thing holding Gyarados back was obviously it's weak to lightning, and Miraidon's a really good deck right now. But honestly, like if in rotation Miraidon falls off a little bit, Gyarados actually could have been a decent card. I mean, it's got 2 really strong attacks, does big damage, and can also discard energy. It can be a very annoying card to play against, but now Gyarados is just going to be leaving us altogether. Ice Rider's also leaving, so the Palkia deck will no longer be able to play the Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX in it. The best part about Ice Rider was it did big damage. It was a great way to, not get KO'd by Miraidon, and also could KO them back very easily with Max Lance, doing 250 damage if you discarded 2 energy from your Ice Rider. But now Ice Rider is leaving, so now Palkia cannot play Ice Rider anymore. That's actually a decent loss for Palkia. Ice Rider was a fairly strong card to have within the deck because it was a great Pokemon that was weak to Lightning. Now, Rapid Strike and Talion's also leaving, so yeah, we're going to be losing an entire archetype with Rapid Strike. The probably best spread deck right now, Rapid Strike, is rotating, and we are losing Inteleon altogether. So yeah, anyone who hates playing against Rapid Strike decks, fear no more. Rapid Strike is going to be gone. Like, every Rapid Strike card is gone, but yeah, this archetype will no longer be a thing in our next rotation. Another huge loss is Kyogre. This card, crazily enough, was a meme when it first came out. Everyone memed on it with the Cryogonal, like, 40 energy deck. And then everyone realized that, wait, Kyogre's actually good within the Lost Zone decks. And then all of a sudden, Kyogre became a very popular card to play with the Lost Zone engine, and it is leaving. Honestly, this is a pretty big loss, and especially now that heading into the new format, we're getting even more big basic decks with our next set. It's actually a pretty big card to lose because Lost Box decks sometimes can struggle to deal with these big basic decks, and having Kyogre is just a very easy way to beat them because it's just a great way to take 4 prizes out of nowhere at the end of the game. But yeah, now Lost Zone decks are losing Kyogre. Honestly, a pretty big loss for Lost Box decks, just because with all these big basic decks that we're going to be getting with our next set and rotation, it's going to be a pretty big loss is to lose Kyogre. So definitely Kyogre is a fairly large loss for Lost Zone variants for sure. Definitely a big card to lose. Milotic's leaving, not really like the greatest card ever, but I did see a little bit of niche success within Goldengo, and Tickaton wouldn't mind playing this too, but that is no longer an option anymore. Pikamigu's leaving, another fun little card that was, it's just a way to draw cards, right? It allowed you to draw a card if it was in your hand, put it at the bottom of your deck. No longer in the format anymore. Pikamigu is leaving. The only deck really this card saw play in was mostly Control, and like any Control deck can no longer play it. We are losing the Keep Calling Sobble. For what it's worth, if we ever get another good Stage 2 Inteleon card, there is no longer the Keep Calling Sobble to pair it with to kind of get a bunch of Sobbles in play. We are losing Quick Shoot Inteleon, a card that never really saw any play after rotation. Obviously, this was a very good card when Shady Dealings existed, but now Shady Dealings is gone, and this card never really saw any play at all. And it's now leaving us, so if anybody were to ever want to play the Quick Shoot Inteleon, I mean, it's just going to be flat out gone now. But maybe I'll cook something up for like an Inteleon video before it leaves. Suicune V is rotating. Ironically enough, Raikou and Entei V are going to stay in the format, but Suicune V is rotating because it came out in Evolving Skies. It is officially an E-block card. Not the worst loss. I think that it is probably the worst of the 3 Johto trio cards right now, but it is a card that we are losing. If we ever get like a good water Pokemon deck to come back, Suicune is no longer going to be played within that deck because it's rotating. Another ginormous loss is Flaffy. This is what might make Miraidon get a lot worse. Miraidon losing Flaffy is a very big deal. Flaffy is one of the best ways to put energy in play in the late game. Miraidon does have Electric Generator, which is a fantastic card to get energy into play, but now Miraidon just flat out loses Flaffy, which means in the later half of the game, Miraidon might be a little bit slower to get energy into play. So yeah, Miraidon losing Flaffy is very big. I think Miraidon might get a little bit worse because there's no more Flaffy. Like, in the late game, it might be harder for Miraidon to stabilize attacks when it no longer has access to Dynamotor anymore. Flying Pikachu VMAX, another pretty big loss. Just a really good card to have with Arceus V-Star. Well, Flying Pikachu doesn't really see much play anymore. It was a pretty good card to have in the format. It definitely made its impact on the game, as it was pretty relevant for a long time within the TCG, and it's one of my favorite VMAX cards, so I'm sad to see Flying Pikachu go. And it honestly could have been a good card now that we're in this like big basic meta with our next set coming out, so Pikachu is another pretty big loss. It's very much just a big loss for the Arceus V-Star decks. Jolteon VMAX is leaving too. Another card that saw a lot of play when it came out and then slowly over time fell off in popularity. But yeah, Jolteon is now leaving us. It is pretty decent with Iron Valiant right now, so if anybody wants to play Jolteon one last time before it's gone, definitely make sure you play some Iron Valiant Jolteon. Regilecki's leaving, so if the Regi deck were to ever come back, there's no longer the the Regieleki with Terra Spark, which is actually a pretty relevant loss. This is definitely one of the best cards within the Regi deck. It's one of the best attackers to have. I would argue this and Regidrago are the two best Regis, and Regieleki Lightning is now gone. It's just a really strong attack. I mean, 120 damage isn't a lot, but it can be really good into like decks weak to Lightning, and doing 40 damage to bench Pokemon sometimes can also be very helpful. So if the Regi deck were to ever be played again, they no longer have this Regieleki to pair it with, which is a pretty decent loss. Deoxys is leaving with the Fusion Single Rapid Strike because all the strikes are leaving. Espeon VMAX rotating is kind of decent. It does have that ability where you can prevent all effects of attacks done to your Pokemon with energy on them. Thankfully, Toadcruel EX is essentially just a successor to Espeon, and I think it might be better than Espeon because it's not weak to Dark, which obviously Dark is really good right now, so maybe Espeon VMAX rotating doesn't matter too much, but it is a card that is leaving, and it did see its success, mostly in Arceus decks. Mirage Step Curly is leaving, so Gardevoir is losing a ton of good cards, and one of the good cards it's losing is, of course, the Mirage Step Curly. Definitely a very big loss for Gardevoir. Being able to put 3 Curlies into play for free is insane, and that is no longer going to be an option to play within Gardevoir, so now Gardevoir has to play a little bit slower now that they're losing Mirage Step. Shiny Arcana is another gigantic loss. I would argue it's maybe one of the biggest losses for Gardevoir. Obviously, one of the best attackers in the deck, one of the best abusers of Reversal Energy, and also has that really good draw ability. Yeah, this Gardevoir will now be gone. And we are getting Moonlight Hill Stadium, I think, in Paldean Fates, so Gardevoir will kind of meet its like best card, its match, whatever, maker, whatever, with Moonlight Hill Stadium. But Moonlight Hill Stadium is only going to be here for a few months, and then rotation's going to happen, and then this Gardevoir is going to be gone. So for all you Guardy fans, make sure you play this card one last time when Moonlight Hill comes out, because it is one of the best cards for that. But yeah, this is going to make Gardevoir a lot worse because it loses the Shiny Arcana Guardy with it. This Scally is also rotating. Not the most relevant card ever, but it is sometimes decent to have Dynablade. Obviously, with less V Pokemon being played, this card isn't that popular, but it is a card that is leaving it regardless. We are losing a really fun card with Lunar Pain Lunala, one of my favorite cards to play. This card does double the amount of damage on each of your opponent's Pokemon. A very fun way to win the game is to use Lunala, but unfortunately, Lunala will be gone with rotation. Rapid Strike Malamar's gone, so another archetype that will be leaving us. Now, this deck hasn't really seen a lot of play in a while, and I don't know, man. Maybe I'll do a video on it very soon. But yeah, Rapid Strike Malamar is leaving. Another like decent archetype that is gone. One that hasn't really seen much play in a while, but it is still going regardless. So anybody who's a fan of this deck, it's now gone. Obviously, Meloetta is leaving. All the Fusion Strike cards are leaving. We can all rejoice. But a big one is obviously going to be Mew from Celebrations. A great setup card to have within the game right now. This is one of the cards that Charizard does lose that, might make Charizard a bit worse. But one of the benefits Mew had was it was a great way to find Battle VIP paths. So, like, with VIP leaving too, Mew might not have been that good anyways, but it's not a bad way, maybe in rotation. If this theoretically were to stick around, it'd be a good way to find more nest balls and stuff, but Mew's gone. Definitely a decent-sized loss for sure for setup decks. Yep. Mew VMAX, an entire archetype is gone. Mew VMAX might be, the longest running deck in the format that saw play. I mean, ever since it came out, it made its impact all the way up until now. Rotation, this deck is still pretty good. And yeah, Mew is just all gone. Every card in Mew is leaving the format. So we'll have to see how, impactful that is. Spiritomb may or may not see much play anymore, though I would argue Spiritomb is still good because Lumineon and like Rotom V will still exist. And those cards will still probably see play in Charizard. But yeah, Mew VMAX is gone. An entire archetype will be leaving us. Yep, Mewtwo V-Union is leaving. Mewtwo is definitely a really fun card. It saw a success as a control deck, saw success with Arceus, and saw success with Gardevoir. But now that's no longer an option as Mewtwo is leaving. Definitely going to do some last Mewtwo V-Union videos because it is one of my favorite cards to play. Mimikyu V is rotating. So Mimikyu VMAX is going to be in the format, but Mimikyu V is going to be rotating. Or actually, no, Mimikyu VMAX is rotating. But yeah, Mimikyu V is rotating. This card is kind of a niche card to play within a stall deck. But that is not going to be an option anymore as Mimikyu's gone. Yeah, and the VMAX is rotating because Mimikyu may have come out in Brilliant Stars. Still technically an E-block card, though, as it says E on it. So Mimikyu VMAX is a really fun spread card. I've seen it play with Arceus. I did a video on it with Iron Valiant a couple weeks back. But now that's gone. So if like any spread deck wanted to exist, that option is no longer available as Mimikyu is leaving. We are losing Pumpkin Pit Pumpkaboo. Doesn't really see much play anymore, but if we ever do get like a reprint of Path or something, then this will no longer be an option for decks to play in order to get rid of Path. So it's sort of a relevant loss, but with Path gone, it's not the biggest loss ever, but if we do get like Path back or something, then losing Pumpkaboo might end up being relevant. Shadow Rider VMAX is leaving. Obviously, we'd have Xatu, which is like the spiritual successor to Shadow Rider VMAX. But yeah, Shadow Rider is rotating. But Xatu's going to be here. So Shadow Rider will live on in the form of Xatu. Sylveon VMAX is rotating alongside Sylveon V, I guess. But yeah, Sylveon VMAX is another really fun card to play. One of my favorite VMAX cards. Saw a bit of success actually recently with Charizard. And it saw some success back in the day during the Brilliant Stars format. But yeah, Sylveon's gone. I'm sad to see this one go. I am a huge fan of Sylveon VMAX. Zacian V's rotating, which is a ginormous loss for Gardevoir. Gardevoir no longer has their big 1-hit KO attacker with Zacian. Now, they can obviously transition to like playing Drifloon and Screamtail, which we'll talk about that a little bit more in a later video, but Zacian is a huge loss for Gardevoir. It's a great way to just knock something out in the active once you load up a ton of energy in the discard pile. Now Gardevoir no longer has access to Zacian anymore. Galarian Zapdos rotating. Hisuian Arcanine is a lot worse now because it doesn't have Zapdos anymore to get energy into play, so I just wanted to note that for anybody who likes to play Arcanine V. Galarian Zapdos V is rotating. A card hasn't really seen much success in a long time, but, you know, it is relevant that it is gone. If we ever see, like, a deck that this card would need to counter, well, no longer there. We're also now losing Medicham. Now, that's a decent loss for Iron Valiant. Obviously, Rapid Strike is just leaving altogether, but this card does see play also within the Iron Valiant deck, but now this card will no longer be played within Iron Valiant. It's a decent-sized loss for Iron Valiant, in my opinion. While Medicham is counterable because you can obviously play Jirachi, Medicham V is definitely a pretty big loss. It's a very unique card, and losing it could end up being relevant for the Valiant decks. Rapid Urshifu, again, one of the longest-running VMAXs alongside Mew. Urshifu had a pretty good run, too. I mean, it saw a lot of success throughout its life in the game, and now Urshifu will be rotating. Again, the entire Rapid Strike engine is rotating, but yeah, we are going to be finally losing Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. Single Strike Urshifu is also gone. So Lugia does take a little bit of a hit because we are losing the Single Strike mechanic, including Single Strike Urshifu and Tyranitar V. So if anybody was a fan of the Single Strike Lugia deck, well, got bad news for you. That deck will no longer be playable as we are losing the Single Strike engine. Yeah, Single Strike Stone Turner's gone. We are losing Moltres now. Oh, man, I'm sad to see this one go. This is one of my favorite cards we've ever had. Galarian Moltres has had so much success in its run. It's a great way to counter Mew. Not bad into, you know, Gardevoir either when it was played within Lost Box. But, yeah, this card is rotating. One of my favorite cards leaving us, and I'm sad to see this Galarian Moltres card go. One of my favorite cards, like I said. Very unique card, very fun card to play. It's kind of like a dark Radiant Charizard. It was Radiant Charizard before Radiant Charizard was a thing. Let's just leave it at that. Galarian Moltres V is rotating. This card is playable within Roaring Moon, so Roaring Moon can no longer play the Galarian Moltres V either. Gengar VMAX also going. It is a single strike Pokemon, so if anybody was a big fan of these Gengar Dark decks, well, Gengar is now gone. Though it doesn't really see much play anymore. Tyranitar V, like again, rotating. Was a single strike card. Lugia can no longer play this. Umbreon VMAX rotating too. Now, not a really big card we saw within single strike decks, but it did see success with Arceus, so Arceus Umbreon is no longer going to be a deck anymore, as Umbreon VMAX is also going to be leaving us. So that's a decent loss for Arc Piles, for sure. And then, of course, the Cry Destruction Evoltol is rotating. Again, if we ever get, like, some big Special Energy reliant deck, this Evoltol will no longer be playable within that deck. Might be relevant if ever we see Lugia rebound in the meta, right? So there you go. Yeah, Single Strike Evoltol also leaving. Zoroark is leaving. Another really fun card. Man, they made a lot of really cool dark Pokemon, didn't they? Yeah, Zoroark is rotating. One of my favorite decks anyways to play, the Zorobox deck. It's no longer going to be playable as we are losing this Zoroark. It sucks this card never really saw the success that it should have seen during its time in the game, but it's just kind of the sad reality of, you know, the power creep. And when we had cards like Sableye existing, there's obviously no wonder why it never saw play, though it should have. It really should have. Bronzong's leaving. I mean, not really a relevant card right now, but it's an interesting card that can move energy around. But yeah, Bronzong will obviously no longer be a thing anymore. Genesect, again, the entire Fusion Strike system engine is gone. Dragonite V rotating is a decent-sized loss for Lost Zone variants because those decks did like to play Dragonite V, so sometimes we might see Lost Box have to resort to playing the Roaring Moon now, which obviously has kind of replaced Dragonite, but Dragonite was a very strong card to play within Lost Box, and it's no longer going to be playable within Lost Zone decks. Duraludon's rotating. Another really good partner with Arceus, though Duraludon hasn't really seen much play recently now that Lugia has fallen off, and with not really any special energy heavy decks on the horizon, I don't really see Duraludon, you know, being missed that much, but maybe it will. Once again, you never know. Ancient Future Energy might end up being pretty broken. Another dragon that's rotating is Flapple, a relevant card that sometimes saw play with Zorobox, though it does live on through the Scizor. Rayquaza VMAX is leaving. One of the biggest, like, I guess, what-if cards. A lot of people really hyped this card when it came out, but as we know, Rayquaza never really made much impact on the game when it came out, and it's sad that never happened. Definitely one of the cooler VMAX cards that never really got to quite see the success that it really should have. Unfortunate. Reggie's. Again, if Reggie's ever wants to play this card, well, the bad Regidrago is called, is now gone. So it was a great way to just do a lot of damage. It's a great one-shot attacker against big basic decks, which is one of the things Reggie's excels at, and unfortunately, this Regidrago is going, so that deck can no longer play this. So, while I think losing the Regieleki is a bigger, loss, this Regidrago could have been good in the deck, because it's one of the best attackers in the deck in terms of raw damage, right? So, we are losing Dunsparce. Relevant decks for Lugia. If Lugia ever wants to survive and no longer has access to Dunsparce anymore, and any other, colorless deck that ends up seeing play can no longer play Dunsparce to remove weakness. One of the most, obnoxiously good Pokemon we've seen in a while is this Dunsparce card. But yeah, it is gone. And that's it for the Pokemon. Not a whole lot of colorless Pokemon are leaving us, to be honest with you. But there you have it, all of the Pokemon that are leaving. We can now move on to the trainers. Starting things off, of course, with the big one, Battle VIP Pass. Yes, Battle VIP Pass is rotating. This is most likely the biggest loss that we are getting with rotation. One of the most dominant cards in the game right now. Most decks play Battle VIP Pass. This card is rotating. It is going to make the format a lot slower as we no longer have access to this card. We have to play stuff like Nest Balls and Artisans and Ultra Balls, and I'm sure the format will adjust. We've had metas before where VIP obviously wasn't a thing, but VIP is just so dominant right now, and it is now finally going to be leaving. I know a lot of people are really happy to see that go. Chromatic's leaving, a nice little fun niche card to play. Obviously the only deck that really plays is Mew, but it is leaving nonetheless. Cross-Switcher's leaving, a nice relevant card for decks like Palkia and Roaring Moon. Yeah, Cross-Switcher will no longer be in the format, so it is gone. We are getting Prime Catcher, which kind of is similar to Cross-Switcher, though, mind you, Cross-Switcher you could do twice in a game with its effect. But yeah, it's gone. So this is a decent loss for Roaring Moon. And honestly, even all of the big basic decks, even Gouging Fire and Walking Wake would have maybe played Cross-Switcher. Echoing Horn rotating. It was a Rapid Strike card, but Echoing Horn did have its results. It was played in other decks, not Rapid Strike. It was good in Mew and stuff like that, but that is no longer an option anymore. It also is a decent loss for Control decks. Control can no longer kind of make something in your discard pile be put into play, which is actually really relevant. So this is a nice little loss for Control decks for sure. Entry Cycler rotating is a pretty big deal. Very strong card to play within Lost Zone variants, but it was really good with the Kyogre deck, and with the Kyogre deck leaving, it's not the biggest loss ever in terms of that, but Recycler definitely was a very strong card that we will no longer have in the game for Lost Zone variants. Escape Rope, another massive item loss up there with Battle VIP. Definitely a big card to lose. I mean, this card is very, very good. A lot of decks usually play a one of it. Obviously, Lost Box plays 4 of them a lot of the time. It's no longer going to be an option. It's a very strong card. And again, with Prime Catcher coming out, we are still going to kind of see something similar to Escape Rope in the format. But yeah, Rope leaving is a very, very big deal for the Lost Box decks. Now they have to play Switch card and Switch. They no longer have the ability to force you to switch. This is a very annoying and very powerful card, and I'm glad to see it go, to be honest, just because it just kind of got, it just basically is now spammed. You know what I mean? Fan Away's leaving, kind of an energy removal card is going. Not the biggest loss ever, but again, if we ever wanted to play a card like this, it's no longer an option right now. Fog Crystal, very big loss for Gardevoir. Gardevoir does lose Fog Crystal, so Gardevoir loses a handful of Pokemon, like Gardevoir, Zacian V, Mew, but it also loses Fog Crystal, which is a very big loss for Gardevoir. It's a great way to get, Ralts and energy, and now Fog Crystal is gone. A pretty big loss for sure. Fog Crystal definitely will be missed within Gardevoir. Gardevoir is going to be a bit slower because they don't have all these Pokemon search cards anymore with VIP and Fog Crystal. And also, Level Ball. Another big loss. Level Ball is a very big loss. I mean, decks that have low HP Pokemon can no longer play this. I think Charizard will kind of be hit with this. Obviously, Gardevoir losing Level Ball really sucks because the Kirlia is still going to be around, but now Kirlia no longer has access to Level Ball, which kind of sucks, to be honest. So we'll have to see how Guardia adapts without Level Ball, but yeah, Level Ball is a very big loss. If we ever get any more decks that can play Level Ball, those are no longer going to see play anymore as Level Ball is gone. I'm sure they might reprint it. This is definitely a card that could get reprinted. It's a pretty nice card to have in the game, in my opinion. And it's a good card for these low HP base decks. So I could see them reprinting Level Ball down the road. But yeah, Level Ball will be leaving us for the time being, potentially for the time being. Obviously, Power Tablet's gone because Fusion Strike is rotating. Rescue Carrier leaving. A nice little Pokemon recovery card. Decent within decks like United Wings. Other than that, not really the most playable card now that we have Super Rod in the format. But just want to note that Rescue Carrier is rotating. Urn, obviously, single strike stuff is leaving the format. And Crystal Cave is also rotating, so if anybody wanted to play a Dragon deck that wants to heal, well, that's no longer playable. Not really a card that sees play anymore. I mean, it saw a little bit of play with, like, Duraludon, and then Mew sometimes used to play this as a one-of for Sableye, but no longer going to be an option for any Dragon and Metal deck that we end up playing in the future, like Dialga V-Star. Now, another massive loss is Path to the Peak. Now, this is a very big card to lose, because now we're not really going to have any good ability lock in the format. I mean, we have, what, Tinglu and Klefki, and I guess the brand new... well, I can't remember what it's called. The Fluttermane. Yes, that's what it's called. Fluttermane. I forgot the name escaped me. But Path is a humongous loss. Now, I'm honestly in the camp that believes Path to Peak is a good card to have within the game, but I can see why people are happy to see it go. I think it should be reprinted. I think it's a great way to kind of keep some of these really strong abilities in check, like Gardevoir and Charizard, but it is what it is. We'll see if Path ends up getting reprinted in the future. I definitely think it's a good card to have in the format. In my opinion, I think it should get reprinted. We'll have to see if it does anytime soon, but Path is a big card to lose. Ability Lock isn't going to be as relevant anymore, which it's a very big deal. Yeah, we'll see if something similar to Path ends up getting reprinted. Skaters Park's rotating. I know some, like, Shenpao decks used to play Skaters Park, but yeah, it's no longer going to be in the format. Story Mountains is leaving. A decent loss for Miraidon, potentially. If Miraidon ever wanted to play a stadium, well, they can no longer play Story Mountain. I guess they already have Beach Court, but yeah, Story Mountain rotating could be relevant for Miraidon decks, potentially. Tower of Water, obviously, Rapstrike's leaving us. We are losing Acerolla's Premonition. We are losing those Mimikyus, like I mentioned earlier, but Acerola will also be leaving the format. Now, this card, it's a decent little draw supporter if you ever wanted to use it in other scenarios than just playing it with Mew VMAX's main attack, and that's no longer an option. Adventure Discovery's rotating. Saw a little bit of success with Arceus, and that's mainly it. I guess it's good with, like, V-Unions, but obviously, like I said, V-Unions are also leaving the format, and Adventure Discovery is also leaving. So if we ever see an Arc Pile in the future, well, that Arc Pile can no longer play Adventure Discovery anymore. Avery's leaving. A pretty big loss for Gardevoir. Gardevoir really likes to play Avery right now alongside Screamtail, but now that combo no longer exists. So we'll have to see if, you know, Guardy can adapt without the Avery Screamtail package anymore, because it's a very good combo to have within the deck, and yeah, Avery leaving can be a pretty big deal for Guardy. Bruno's leaving. A nice little, like, card to play within single price decks. I was always a huge fan of this card. Being able to shuffle your hand in your deck and draw 7 cards and then gets knocked out was always a very strong effect. I'm kind of sad to see Bruno go, not going to lie. He's a very cool supporter. You know, sometimes I end up playing like a 1 or 2 of these in my decks. I like playing it. It's a nice little niche draw supporter. Cafe Master's rotating. Just wanted to mention that it is a niche supporter card, but it has an interesting effect where you can put basic energy to play on each of your different each bench Pokemon of a different type. But your turn ends. It's a niche card, but it is gone. Cheryl's rotating. A nice little heal supporter card. Turo is now in the format, which doesn't really replace Cheryl, but kind of replaces Cheryl, sort of-ish. But yeah, Cheryl's gone. Lisa Sparkle, obviously the Fusion Strike system is gone. Gloria is leaving, a nice little setup card. Didn't really see a whole lot of play, but I wanted to note that, yeah, we are losing Gloria, if anybody was a fan of Gloria for setup. Clara's a decent-sized loss. Radiant Charizard obviously still sticks around in the format, and Clara will be gone. A nice little recovery card. I'm a big fan of Clara. I think it's one of the more unique cards we've had in a while for supporter cards. But yeah, Clara will no longer be a thing, so Radiant Charizard decks, you know, Sablezard specifically, won't have access to Clara anymore. Melanie's another decent loss. Palkia actually gets a lot worse because Palkia does lose Clara, or Melanie, sorry, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, Water Energy Acceleration on Palkia is pretty good. So, yeah, Palkia might get a lot worse because Palkia can no longer play Melanie anymore as an Energy Acceleration card. Peonia is also leaving. Pretty big loss for Control, to be honest. Control obviously likes to play Peonia to be able to look at their prize cards. But now that's no longer playable. So Control might end up having a bit of trouble now finding prizes now that Peonia is gone. It's one of the only ways to actually look through the prizes, and that's no longer going to be playable anymore. Peony is also leaving. The Miraidon Peony deck will no longer exist. It's like the most popular way to play Miraidon right now. So it is a decent-sized loss for Miraidon to lose a supporter like Peony, considering it is the best way to play Miraidon right now. Phoebe's leaving. Didn't really want to, I want to include it. I mean, it's a supporter that is leaving. I thought it already rotated, but I was like, oh, shoot, it's still in the format. What the heck? Really only good against Mimikyu for VMAXs. Another pretty big loss is Raihan. Really good card to play with an Arceus V-Star decks. Also is decent to have within the Miraidon deck. And I think Miraidon would have really liked having Raihan in the format if it stuck around. But yeah, Raihan is leaving. It's a pretty big supporter loss. One of my favorite supporters we've had in a long time. It's a pretty strong and great card, and it's now, officially going to be gone. It will make Arc Piles a little bit worse because Arceus really does like to play Raihan. So yeah, Raihan is no longer going to be in the format. We are losing Zinnia's Resolve, a niche draw supporter that saw some success in some decks, like some Gardevoir lists used to play it. No longer going to be an option within those decks. Blunder Policy's leaving. Anytime I play a coin flip deck, I always get a comment, where's the Blunder Policy at? Well, that's no longer going to be a thing, as it is an E-block card. It came out a billion stars, but it was an E-block card. Another decent loss is Cleansing Gloves. It's a really cool tool card to have against Guardy decks, like Giratina likes to play it, but no longer going to be an option. So if you're ever playing against Gardevoir, which, we'll have to see if that still exists, obviously, in the format after rotation, if it can survive, but Cleansing Gloves no longer exist for that. I guess with Mew leaving, it's kind of like, okay, well, Mew's leaving too, so another card, Cleansing Gloves, was really good to counter, is also going to be gone anyways. Hunting Gloves is gone, doing more damage to Dragon Pokemon. It could have been relevant. I mean, Raging Bull's coming out. You never know. That could have, that could have been a relevant thing, right? Justified Gloves leaving. Actually a decent-sized loss for decks that wanted to deal with Charizard a little bit easier, especially Charizard itself. A lot of the Charizard decks also play Justified Gloves in them for the mirror match, but now that is no longer going to be a thing for those decks. Spongy Gloves is gone. If you ever wanted to counter water types, specifically like Shempow and I guess Walking Wake potentially, now that's no longer an option. Tool Jammer's leaving. Another interesting card to lose. Doesn't really see a lot of play right now, but it has seen a bit of success within Charizard. And I guess it's a great way to kind of deal with TM Devo sometimes, but now that is no longer an option. So yeah, Jammer is a really unique tool card we had, and obviously no longer going to be in the format anymore. Fusion Strike Energy obviously rotating. Lucky Energy's leaving. Not really the most relevant card. It saw a bit of success within Blissey, but obviously we haven't really seen Blissey do anything in a long time. Rapid Strike Energy is also leaving, again, with the whole Rapid Strike mechanic. Single Strike Energy also leaving. Lugia, eat your heart out. Treasure Energy is rotating. Another very interesting card. Didn't really see any success, but I did want to note that it is also leaving the format. And there you have it. That is all of the trainers and supporters and items and stuff we're leaving alongside all of the relevant Pokemon. Again, I think the obvious big losses, Battle VIP, Path to the Peak, Escape Rope, Level Ball, those are all pretty big cards. I think cards like Raihan are going to be minor but felt. Pokemon, we are losing some pretty big Pokemon like Kyogre. We're losing Flaffy, Shine Arcana Gardevoir, Zacian V, Mew VMAX, the Rapid Strike Engine, Celebrations Mew. We are losing some pretty big cards, and I'm going to be interested to see how these new decks survive rotation. I'll probably do a video later on where we look at what decks are going to survive rotation and how they will adapt to the rotation. That'll be a fun one to do a video on. I'm excited for the rotation content coming on the channel. Again, we're most likely going to get rotation in March, so we still have a couple months out, but I'm excited to see what new cards will also come out in our next set that also might have an impact on what decks will survive rotation. Because right now, we don't really have a gander at everything. I mean, for all we know, all these cards I talked about, any one of them could spiritually get reprinted within our next set. We haven't seen the full set list yet for our next main Scarlet and Violet set. For all we know, Path could come back. Battle VIP could come back. I mean, I doubt that would happen. That'd be insane if it did. But you never know. That'll be it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video today on the channel. Leave a like if you did. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below as always. And, yeah, let me know what you think of the rotation. What card are you going to miss the most with rotation? I'd be interested to hear. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.